I'm Alenka Kyslik. I'm the CEO and founder of Saha.
Can you tell me about your mental health journey?
Yeah, it's been a wild one. So I have been, I'm a oldest daughter, a child of immigrants. I have been an overachiever my entire life. Um, and what that looked like is, starting working at 15 and continuing working, and kind of climbing the corporate ladder, being the first to graduate from university, um, and then eventually, what culminated in burnout, which I had heard other people use the term, but in the moment I didn't know what was happening. I just felt like I couldn't function. I was exhausted all the time. I used to write like 50 plus emails a day, be on meetings all day, and I could barely write two. I had shooting pain in my jaw from grinding my teeth. And I figured it must have been an infection, but then when I went to see the dentist, it was in fact grinding, and so it was um, a really rough realization that everything I had put my worth in terms of like my worth at the time was what do I have the capacity to put out and work and do for others, and then all of a sudden I couldn't do any of that, and I had to really dig deep and figure out what the and include any four-letter word you want to put in there was going on, right? Because it was really I didn't know what was happening and I didn't know how to address it, and there was no one telling me that that's what was going on, and so it took me years to figure out how to get figure out what's happening, how to be aware of it so I don't do it again, and to really just keep it top of mind.
How did creating your own organization come about?
Yeah. So that happened as a part of this journey. So I went through burnout, and then a year later I stepped off a curb and I tore my ankle to shreds. Um, yeah, like it was really bad. And that wasn't healing. And I was doing all the right things. I live in a big city. I theoretically have access to all the care that I need, but it wasn't working. And so I started to dig in and do my own research, and I found out that there's a lot of things I could do, and it was surprising. You wouldn't think of it, but a lot of the things that were going on with my ankles were actually related to also what was going on in my mind. Things like the ability to not pay attention and slow down and really pay attention to where you're walking. Like my mind was always racing and doing things. Certain vitamin deficiencies were related between soft tissues and brain function, which I had no idea. But it was I basically saw that there's this huge gap where people aren't finding answers in conventional medicine. For those who do, I am so happy for you. That is wonderful. There's a lot of us who that's just not the case, and it's really hard to know where to start. It's really hard to find answers when you're just exhausted dealing with your day to day. And so I wanted to build something through my experience of what I had witnessed through hundreds of other people that would be able to give people a starting point and give people back agency.
How does helping others help your own healing process?
I mean, I think one of the things that people, especially like today, people talk about there's a epidemic of loneliness, right? And I think when you start to help other people, you realize you're not alone. You realize that there are a lot of other people out there who are going through similar things. And it's a really beautiful thing to find community. And when you find that community, it like we're social beings, right? We're not meant to be alone. And so just being in community, it gives you the strength to continue and to move forward. And you might find some resources that you never thought that existed, or you might learn something about yourself that you didn't know before just being with others.
And your organization's all about community. Can you talk a little
Yeah.
bit more about that?
Yeah, so there's a couple different sides to it. So I think the first side is when we talk about holistic providers, which is who I'm focusing on. So think acupuncturists, therapists, chiropractors, functional medicine practitioners, Pilates instructors, like the list goes on. Um, they are often working in isolation. So they often have their own practice. They may have a community, but it's really hard to find other people that they can either refer to or that they can just commiserate with. Like, I hate setting up my email systems, right? Like, those things are, most of them got into it because they want to help others. They didn't get into it to become experts in business. But it's a necessary evil, right? So they're figuring out how all of these things work. And it's tough. All of these things are tough. And I think building community and having, people support each other is so important. So part of what we do is we have monthly sessions with all of our providers. We do mini workshops, and then we have a time to connect. I don't say network because I think networking can sometimes be in order to do something else, but
Right.
this community is specifically to, like, let's get to know each other and support each other. And then I see really beautiful things where I see these providers doing things together on social media and other things. I've seen it kind of have this like multiplier effect. And then in terms of people who are going through what they're going through, I think it's also really important to have that community. And I've already started to see it in some of the, like, I default to social media because that's just like an easy place for people to connect. But I've seen incredible communities pop up in very niche, or what we would consider niche from like a medical statistical point of view, like diagnoses. Like, there's not a lot of people that have whatever it is, but in social media, you're able to connect with people who are going through exactly the same thing as you. And I think it's back to that. Oh, I'm not the only one. Right. And that feels really powerful.
Yeah, with the professionals, you don't really talk about their mental health or how they're feeling. So, how important is it for them to have relatability or some support?
Yeah, I think it's like anything. If you're not at your best, you can't be at your best for the people you're trying to serve, right? And so for them to be able to have, and the amount of conversations I've had, like I actually just sent a voice note to one of my providers. I was like, hey, we talked about this thing 2 months ago, and I just remembered something else I wanted to send to you, right? When you're able to have the resources and the support network to get you where you need to be. So like from a mental health perspective, that can be feeling not alone. That can be knowing that, like, hey, this downtime is just a phase. It doesn't have anything to do with who you are and how amazing you are as a professional, right? Because we can have a really hard time with that, saying like, oh, a business is slow, or I'm not getting clients. Like, that could be for a multitude of reasons, and it can have nothing to do with who you are. But oftentimes we internalize it, and we're like, oh my goodness, like I am not, like, you take this to the wider world. I'm not getting the job I want. I'm not in the relationship I want to be. Must mean I'm not good enough. And that's just not the case. But it's really hard when you're alone to not start that narrative. So by having these professionals have community and be able to connect with each other, it puts them in a better place. It gives them the tools they need. I think them having what they need means that they can be the best that they can be. And that then translates to how they're able to impact their clients and the rest of the world around them.
And you talked about Pilates earlier and then yoga as well. So, how important is it to take care of not only your mental health, but physical health at the same time?
Yeah, there's some really interesting studies that have come out recently that talk about the more you activate your muscles, right, the more it releases a bunch of different things into your brain chemistry that actually makes you happier. And we've known this, right? Like, oh yeah, if you go for a walk, you're going to feel better, right? But there's a lot of really interesting stuff that's coming out that really solidifies it. And I think for me, what's really powerful with that is just finding what works for you, right? You might hate running. Like, I don't love it. But if, like, I enjoy walking with my dog, and I walk a lot. Mostly because she needs to have her energy out, but also because I now enjoy it more. I like, I'm like, oh, that flower's blooming, or, oh, that house was painted recently. I didn't notice it. Right. And I think that mental health aspect. So if you're constantly in pain, for example, I didn't know that Pilates can help with back pain. I learned this recently. Imagine if you're not in pain, what that does to your mental health, right? Imagine if you have the energy to get up in the morning. And that's one of those contradictory things with physical exercise, is when you exercise, you get better sleep and then you have more energy, but you don't have the energy to exercise in the first place, right? It's like this annoying. So it's doing what you can and what works for you. And like for some people, that means gardening, right? Pulling weeds is hard work, like if you've ever done it for hours. For some people, like I said, that could mean walking. It could mean taking a class. It could mean throwing the ball for your dog, or whatever it is, right? You just have to find what works for you. And I think we often get caught up in this, oh, only this thing is like, I have to do this thing, right? Whatever the fad is lately, like if it's yoga or Pilates, then like that's the thing that's going to fix me. And it might be, but just doing something consistently, whatever it means for you, that's what's going to, because if you think of your brain and your body as a muscle, and your brain is an organ effectively, right? Then it needs to do the same thing over and over and over again, right? You don't expect an athlete to get better by not practicing. We don't expect our health to get better by not doing the thing over and over again. So, but it doesn't have to start with however many times a week. You can start with something small.
What do you do to help your mental health?
Oh, so many things. I think the biggest thing I do is I give myself grace. I really try not to beat myself up for not doing whatever the thing is I need to get done that day or wanted to do. And that's really hard, right? So I give myself grace. I think I really pay attention to what is going on. Like if I'm exhausted, I'll take a nap. And like if that means I don't get something done, like I came back from a trip and I haven't unpacked. Like there's a pile of stuff and I'm just okay with that. Like I'm giving myself grace that that is not done. I am really intentional about how I eat. It doesn't mean I don't eat like delicious. Like I have some chocolate that I haven't finished here on the desk, right? Like it doesn't mean I don't not eat the things that make me happy, but I also, I'm really, I try to make sure that I'm eating things that are helping me feel better. And so I pay attention, like, do I eat something and do I feel really sluggish and gross afterwards, or do I have energy? And then I try to eat more of that, right? It doesn't have to be complicated. And I'm also a lot more obsessive about my vitamin levels than I ever used to be. So if I, with annual physical, if something comes back as low, I really make a priority of trying to improve that, which I did a deep dive into brain chemistry and was like, oh, if I'm low on these things, then like I'm going to feel a certain way. And it really helped me prioritize that.
How does it feel for you to be connecting others?
It's really, it gives me a lot of energy. It makes me feel really happy and excited to be able to make an impact. Because it's something hard. Like when you, like this happens all the time in conversation where someone's like complaining about a problem that they have, right? It could be with work or it could be with their health. And if you're able to give them a nugget of something that turns that light bulb in their brain, to me, that's the like most exciting feeling. Like I just love doing that. And so it's being able to do that at scale, being able to take my brain dump and put it into a piece of software that does that for me. It's just really powerful.
Yeah, how does technology help mental health?
In many different ways. I think it's you, like, for example, on social media, I intentionally don't follow a bunch of things that I know are going to make my mental health worse, right? Like I'm very intentional about what I follow. So, I mean, that's a part of it. I think technology can help if you find the right thing that works for you. Everyone's different. My brain works very differently than your brain does, I'm sure, right? I don't know you well, but I'm sure we have different ways of thinking about things.
Right.
And so it's like, how do I find the thing that helps? I think there's tons of amazing tools out there. What I come back to is does it give me more stress when I'm doing it, experiencing, using it, or does it bring me calm? Because if it's giving me more stress, then like it may not be the right thing. Like it may not be helping you. But if it's bringing me more calm, and that could look like anything, right? Like it doesn't have to be like what I'm building. It takes 2 minutes to fill out. So it's not like a thing you're using all the time from a technology standpoint. But I think it just depends, right? I think we talk about like, it's beautiful to be able to do this, right? The fact that we're video chatting 10 years ago, this would not really been a thing in the same way, right? Like that's a beautiful way that can help your mental health. And that can look like connecting with other individuals on group calls who are going through the same thing you're going through, right? You don't have to be physically present to be heard and to feel like you're a part of something. But it just, yeah, there's a lot of really cool tools out there. You just got to be patient, which is nobody likes.
Exactly. What would you say to anyone going through a tough time?
I hate it when someone's like, it's going to get better. You're like, I'm about to slap you. Like, that's like the worst thing, right? I think it's, and this is to me really interesting. So, have you ever heard of the concept of neuroplasticity?
No, I haven't.
Okay. So neuroplasticity is this ability in our brains to rewire. So for example, I'm going to give you, this is probably a little TMI, but I'm proud of it as a woman. So as a woman, you're always concerned about how you look and how you're presenting yourself. You're fed all of these things that you should look a certain way your whole life. I went through this injury, and then I have now gotten to a point where I feel like a lot better. But I put on a pair of jeans and I was like, oh my goodness, like I got stronger and these barely fit anymore. And that's neuroplasticity, right? If that was a few years ago, I would have been like, oh, I gained a bunch of weight and I don't like, they're too small for me. But now I know that that's not the case. I know it's muscle, and that ability in my brain to say, oh, no, this is like a really good thing. That's neuroplasticity. So it's it's basically telling yourself a certain story enough times to get you where it is. And all that could be is, I am grateful to be alive today. Right. And that's where people talk about the power of words. I am grateful to be alive today. And you look at yourself and like, even if it doesn't feel that way, even if you're like, I am not feeling great, or find something that you really enjoy. Like you really enjoy, the snuggles with your cat, or, like certain things that like little tiny, it can be something small. I love the smell of the food I'm making right now. Right. Instead of like, I can't believe how many calories are in this, right? You can just and if you do that often enough, eventually your body will, and your brain will start to make those associations differently than they were before. And that is something that doesn't cost anything. It doesn't, there's different ways of doing it, obviously, but I think it's a really powerful tool that allows you to say, no, like my butt's not big, it's strong, right? Like that's if you think of it from that way. So, and it can look a lot of different ways. So now when I'm tired, I'm like, oh, I must have pushed myself too hard, instead of, oh, I'm not good enough, I didn't do enough today and I need to continue pushing, right? It's just the matter of changing the narrative in your mind. And it's not easy. It takes years. Like I am, what is it, 2025? I am almost 4 years into this journey of like very intentionally trying to make changes. And I will say the first year was just resting and just taking care of myself, and honestly having a nap every day. And now I'm more, it's slowly progressed, right? I think another thing that I tried to share is, it took you years to get to this point. It's okay if it's going to take you a while to get out of whatever you're in. Like it didn't happen overnight. And even like when we break a bone, we're like not expecting it to heal overnight, right? Like even if it happened in a quick moment. So I think it's just being kind to ourselves and knowing that any progress is still progress. You woke up today. That's progress.
Where do you want to see your mission, say, in the next 3 to 5 years?
I really want to be a place where people can come to and feel heard and feel understood, and feel like they are not alone. And I think that can look like a lot of different things, but I really want it to be a place where people can see that, oh, there are like this is not it for the rest of my life. There is a way for things to grow and get better, and I think it's important to be able to give that to people. I don't think it's okay that we just accept things as they are. Sometimes things are the way they are, and that's just it. It's raining today, I'm gonna suck that up. But like other times, right, like there's things that we can do and grow and change, and I really want people to feel empowered.
How can people reach out to you and learn more?
Yeah, so I'm on, I was going to say TikTok, but yeah, I guess it's still a thing. I'm on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram at saha.collective. That's SAHA.collective. You can email me at info@sahacollective.com. And then the prototype, which is completely free, is sahacollective.com.